Secretary Scott Bessent should clarify. The Grenell-Rubio debate in United States policy in Venezuela. A call for clarity from Secretary Scott Bessent. Since early May 2025, a heated debate between Richard Grenell, Special President Envoy for Special Missions, and Marco Rubio, United States Secretary of State, has dominated discussions on social media, focusing on the future of United States policy toward Venezuela. This controversy centers on the expiration of Chevron's license to operate in Venezuela, set for May 27, 2025, and reflects broader tensions within the Trump administration over economic and strategic priorities in Latin America. The lack of a unified stance has generated significant confusion among policymakers, oil markets, and international stakeholders, undermining the credibility of United States foreign policy. As Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent oversees the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, which holds the authority to issue or revoke licenses critical to this policy. We urge Bessent to issue a public statement clarifying the Treasury Department's intentions regarding OFAC sanctions, emphasizing the economic risks of losing United States oil supplies and investments and the strategic threat of China expanding its influence in regions vacated by American mismanagement. The analysis also considers implications for Guyana, a key regional player, and incorporates public reactions on social media, the roles of key actors, and international responses to provide a comprehensive review of the issue. The debate between Richard Grenell and Marco Rubio emerged prominently in early May 2025, driven by conflicting statements about the future of Chevron's operations in Venezuela. On May 21, 2025, Grenell appeared on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, announcing that a 60-day extension had been secured for Chevron's OFAC license following his negotiations with representatives of Nicolas Maduro in Antigua and Barbuda. These talks also resulted in the release of a United States military prisoner, Joe St. Clair, highlighting Grenell's pragmatic approach to diplomacy. Grenell argued that maintaining United States operations in Venezuela preserves economic leverage and prevents China from dominating the country's oil sector, a perspective that resonated with some social media users who valued his focus on tangible outcomes. In contrast, Marco Rubio, leveraging his authority as Secretary of State, confirmed on May 22, 2025, through a public statement and an ex post that Chevron's license, originally granted under the Biden administration, would expire as scheduled on May 27, 2025, with no extension planned. Rubio's position reflects his long-standing advocacy for stringent sanctions against the Maduro government, prioritizing national security and democratic reforms over economic considerations. This stance aligns with his broader foreign policy vision, which emphasizes pressure on authoritarian regimes. On May 22, 2025, Tammy Bruce, spokeswoman for the Department of State, addressed the controversy to dispel the confusion generated by Grenell's claims. Bruce stated that Rubio's decision to let the license expire was clear and that the authority to make such decisions rested with President Trump and Marco Rubio. She emphasized that differing opinions within the administration did not alter the official stance, effectively marginalizing Reynolds' role as a special envoy. Bruce's remarks, reported by France 24, aimed to project a unified front, but they underscored the internal discord within the Trump administration, as Reynolds' suggestion on an extension had already gained traction on social media. The public response on X reveals a polarized debate among users. Some, like Emmanuel Rincon, praised Bruce's statement for clarifying that Trump and Rubio hold decision-making power, arguing that it effectively countered Reynolds' narrative. Similarly, and Camacho 1906 criticized Reynolds for raising false expectations among Venezuelans by suggesting an extension that was not authorized. Conversely, users like Leonline 2000 highlighted Reynolds' success in securing hostage releases, arguing that his pragmatic approach benefits United States interests more than Rubio's hardline stance. Conservative activist Laura Loomer supported maintaining Chevron's presence, citing the need to prevent United States jobs and counter Chinese influence in Venezuela. Other posts, such as those from iPulgian and Diario Tal Cual, noted the internal fight within the administration, questioning the coordination between key figures and reflecting widespread public uncertainty about the direction of United States policy. The Department of the Treasury, under the leadership of Secretary Scott Bessent, plays a central role in the debate over Chevron's license through its oversight of the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC. OFAC is responsible for issuing, modifying, or revoking licenses related to economic sanctions, operating under legal frameworks such as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. In November 2022, OFAC issued General License 41, which allowed Chevron to conduct limited operations in Venezuela despite sanctions. In March 2025, OFAC modified this license with General License 41A, providing a wind-down period until April 2025, after which Chevron's operations were set to cease unless further action was taken. This authority positions OFAC, and by extension Bessent, as a critical actor in determining the future of United States engagement in Venezuela's oil sector. While OFAC holds technical authority over licenses, its decisions are guided by the broader foreign policy objectives set by the Department of State. Led by Marco Rubio, sanctions serve as both an economic and diplomatic tool, requiring close coordination between the Treasury and State departments. Rubio's influence is evident in his public confirmation that Chevron's license will expire, reflecting his preference for a sanctions-first approach to pressure the Maduro government. Bessent's role, in contrast, is to ensure that these decisions align with economic coherence, balancing the strategic goals of United States foreign policy with the practical implications for American markets and industries. However, Bessent's silence on the issue, particularly following the Grenell-Rubio controversy, has fueled uncertainty as markets and international actors await clear direction from the Treasury. A significant point of contention is Bessent's participation in a White House meeting on May 10, 2025, alongside Grenell, where Latin America policy, including the Chevron license, was reportedly discussed. This meeting took place while Rubio was in Miami meeting with Guyana officials, suggesting an attempt by Grenell and Bessent to push for a more pragmatic approach, potentially including a license extension. Despite these discussions, no official confirmation of an extension has emerged, and Rubio and Bruce's subsequent statements directly contradicted Grenell's claims. Bessent's failure to publicly clarify the Treasury's position or confirm OFAC's stance has exacerbated confusion, as noted by Benigno Alarcón, who pointed out the absence of an official OFAC statement on the matter. This lack of transparency underscores the need for Bessent to address the issue directly to restore clarity and confidence. The expiration of Chevron's license on May 27, 2025 carries significant economic implications for United States oil supplies and investments, with ripple effects for both domestic and regional markets. Venezuela possesses the world's largest proven oil reserves, yet its production has plummeted to approximately 870,000 barrels per day due to years of sanctions, mismanagement, and infrastructure decay, as reported by the International Energy Agency in its May 2025 oil market report. Chevron's operations, facilitated by OFAC licenses, have been instrumental in maintaining limited United States access to Venezuela's heavy crude, a critical input for United States Gulf Coast refineries. If the license expires without renewal, Venezuela's oil output is likely to decline further, tightening the global supply of heavy crude. This reduction could increase refining costs in the United States, as alternative sources such as Canada or the Middle East are more expensive, according to analysis from KPLER. While global oil prices remain low, with Brent crude at $60 per barrel and West Texas Intermediate at $57 per barrel due to OPEC Plus production increases, a further contraction in Venezuelan supply could introduce volatility, particularly in the heavy crude market, as noted by Reuters. Beyond supply constraints, the loss of United States investments in Venezuela poses a significant economic risk. Chevron has invested billions of dollars in Venezuela's oil infrastructure, and ending its operations would effectively forfeit these assets, diminishing American economic influence in a resource-rich region. Chevron's lobbying efforts have emphasized that its presence supports United States jobs and contributes to energy security, arguments that have been echoed by some ex-users advocating for an extension. However, Rubio's sanctions-focused approach, reinforced by Tammy Bruce's statements, has so far prevailed, indicating that political objectives are taking precedence over economic considerations. The debate also has implications for Guyana, an emerging oil producer with significant ExxonMobil-led projects. Rubio's vocal support for Guyana, particularly in response to Venezuela's territorial claims, over the Essequibo region signals United States commitment to the country's energy sector, as reported by the New York Times in March 2025. However, a United States withdrawal from Venezuela could undermine regional confidence in American leadership, potentially deterring investment in Guyana's nascent oil industry. A diminished United States presence in the region risks signaling a lack of commitment, which could affect Guyana's economic stability and its ability to counterbalance regional competitors. The potential withdrawal of United States companies from Venezuela carries profound strategic consequences, particularly the risk of ceding control of the country's oil sector to China. China is currently the largest buyer of Venezuelan oil, accounting for 52% of its exports, and has made substantial investments in the country's energy infrastructure, according to KPLER's 2025 analysis. If Chevron exits Venezuela due to the license expiration, China is well positioned to expand its influence, securing long-term contracts and further entrenching its presence in Latin America's oil markets. This development would strengthen China's geopolitical position in the Western Hemisphere, a region historically within the United States' sphere of influence, posing a direct challenge to American strategic interests. Secretary Scott Bessent's management philosophy emphasizes preventing China from exploiting gaps created by United States policy failures, a principle that makes his silence on the Chevron license issue particularly concerning. A United States retreat from Venezuela would contradict Bessent's goal of countering Chinese expansion, as it would hand Beijing a strategic victory in a critical resource sector. These broader regional dynamics amplify this risk, as a United States withdrawal could redirect Venezuelan oil exports toward Asia, altering global trade routes and reducing Western access to the region's resources. European countries such as Spain and Italy, already impacted by United States tariffs on Venezuelan imports introduced in April 2025, are seeking alternative suppliers, further diminishing Western influence, as reported by CNBC. In Guyana, a weakened United States presence could embolden China to invest more aggressively, challenging American partnerships and complicating efforts to support Guyana's economic growth. As Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent holds a pivotal role in resolving the confusion surrounding Chevron's license, given his oversight of OFAC, the agency responsible for administering sanctions and licenses. Bessent's participation in a White House meeting on May 10, 2025, with Richard Grenell, where Latin American policy and the Chevron license were reportedly discussed, suggests he was actively engaged in shaping the administration's approach. This meeting occurred while Rubio was absent, indicating a possible attempt to advocate for a license extension. However, Bessent has not publicly clarified the Treasury's position or confirmed the outcome of these discussions, leaving markets and international actors in uncertainty. This silence, as noted by Benigno Alarcón, who highlighted the absence of an official OFAC statement, has fueled speculation and undermined confidence in United States policy. Bessent's expertise in economic policy equips him to recognize the significant risks of withdrawing United States companies from Venezuela. Economically, losing access to Venezuelan oil could disrupt United States refining operations, increase costs, and undermine energy security, particularly for heavy crude-dependent refineries. Strategically, ceding Venezuela's oil sector to China would weaken United States' influence in Latin America, directly contradicting Bessent's objective of preventing Chinese expansion into spaces vacated by American mismanagement. These imperatives underscore the urgency of addressing the current policy ambiguity. To restore clarity and confidence, Bessent must issue a public statement outlining the Treasury's stance on OFAC sanctions and Chevron's license. Such a statement would clarify whether OFAC will align with Rubio's sanctions-first approach or consider Grenell's pragmatic proposal for an extension, providing much-needed direction to stakeholders. By addressing the oil markets, which have experienced significant volatility due to uncertainty as reported by the Financial Post in 2025, Bessent can help stabilize expectations and mitigate economic risks. Furthermore, a clear statement would reinforce United States leadership, signaling to international partners, including Guyana, that the United States remains committed to countering Chinese influence and maintaining its economic presence in the region. Bessent's action is essential to align United States policy with its strategy and economic goals. The Grenell-Rubio debate has elicited polarized reactions within the United States, reflecting deep divisions over the direction of United States policy towards Venezuela. Among Latino communities, particularly Cuban, Venezuelan, and Nicaraguan populations in Florida, there is strong support for Rubio's hardline stance against the Maduro government. Representative Maria Elvira Salazar expressed concerns about Grenell's negotiations, arguing that concessions to Maduro could undermine efforts to promote democracy in Venezuela. However, some Latinos, while supportive of Rubio, worry that Grenell's pragmatic approach might lead to compromises that weaken the opposition to Maduro's government. Non-Latino audiences are similarly divided, with Republicans split between MAGA supporters who favor Grenell's results-oriented diplomacy and traditionalists who back Rubio's ideological commitment to sanctions, as reported by Politico in 2025. Democrats, including Senators Chris Van Hollen and Jeanne Shaheen, have criticized both Grenell and Rubio for aligning with Trump's broader policy framework, which they argue prioritizes political optics over democratic principles. According to National Public Radio in May 2025. Internationally, the debate has significant implications for global energy markets and geopolitical alignments. China, poised to increase its oil imports and investments in Venezuela if Chevron exits, stands to strengthen its regional influence as outlined by KPLER. This potential shift would enhance Beijing's foothold in Latin America, challenging United States' strategic interests. European countries such as Spain and Italy, already affected by United States tariffs on Venezuelan oil introduced in April 2025, are seeking alternative oil sources, reducing the reliance on Venezuela and further diminishing Western influence, as reported by CNBC. In Latin America, neighbors like Colombia and Brazil have expressed concern over the potential for increased regional instability and migration if Venezuela's economy deteriorates further due to tightened sanctions. According to Efecto Cocuyo, in 2025. These reactions underscore the global stakes of the United States policy debate and the need for a coherent approach. The Grenell-Rubio debate represents a critical juncture for United States policy in Venezuela and Guyana, with far-reaching economic and strategic implications. The expiration of Chevron's license in May 27, 2025, risks reducing United States access to vital oil supplies, forfeiting significant investments, and ceding control of Venezuela's oil sector to China, outcomes that directly contradict Secretary Scott Bessent's philosophy of preventing Chinese expansion into spaces vacated by United States policy failures. As the overseer of OFAC, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent holds the authority to shape the future of United States engagement in Venezuela's oil sector, yet his silence amid the ongoing controversy has fueled confusion and uncertainty. A public statement from Scott Bessent clarifying the Department of Treasury's stance on OFAC sanctions is essential to restore coherence, stabilize oil markets, and reinforce United States leadership in Latin America. The world is watching, and Bessent's action is critical to protecting American economic and strategic interests in this pivotal region.